Thanks, Jane. I appreciate it. I'm really excited to be here today. A little bit further introduction. So I work as the Director of Professional Services at the UniLink Group, and I'm responsible for our clients' implementations and success. So from the moment you say, yes, let's do it, through well after you've gone live and through support. That's my team. I'm thrilled to be working with such talented people. One of those senior developers has joined me today, and that is Cameron Crawford.
Hello.
He's been with us since 2017 and is one of our team leads. Uh, Y'all may or may not already know Clark. Clark, you're the Director of Project Management at Central Data. You joined in 2018 as a business consultant on CSE, focusing on that, and EDI, Infor OS, and you're still working with clients on their implementations. And then prior to joining Central Data, you were a director of IT for over 25 years in
Awesome.
distribution, manufacturing, and service industries. Darren, you're also here from Central Data. I appreciate that. You are a new to Central Data in December of last year, and you joined as a business consultant. You have a specialization in EDI and business intelligence. And prior to Central Data, I know you were working at various IT management positions within distribution and transportation. So I'm grateful for y'all to join us and have a conversation about EDI. It's not necessarily the most glamorous thing in the world, but it is so key to uh, business functions, and being able to have that business to business exchange of information that allows distributors to accelerate their responsiveness to their customers and then also from their vendors. We're going to talk just briefly about what is EDI and how does it work. Just as a refresher for those who may not know, and then just put us all on the same page. So, Cameron, will you start at a high level for us and talk about what we call the core four, which is an order, purchase order, the purchase order acknowledgement, that advanced ship notice, and an
Mhm.
invoice. Can you talk about what that is and how that works?
Yeah, absolutely. And the whole main goal of this is to save you time and money by not having to do manual entry and to have things move instantly. And so if you look here on the left-hand side, you would have your vendors or suppliers. And what you have is you're going to send a purchase order out. So there's something that you want to purchase, and you purchase those items. And what happens is in your ERP, this is put together either in a semi-automated or an automated way, and it's sent to your trading partner through us, which we then receive their return documents. So you've made a purchase order. Now you get an invoice. You get a purchase order acknowledgement saying everything that you ordered is going to be sent to you, or it might be back ordered, so on and so forth. You'll get the details about your purchase order. And then you'll also get the indication of when you're going to receive your items and when they will arrive and what the information is to notify your warehouse of the arrival of the items that you ordered. So you get all of this back in a way that is nearly instant compared to if you have to manually put together a purchase order, each line item, each unit of measure, so on and so forth, and then also have to take that invoice data, the purchase order acknowledgement data, review it manually, and put this all back into your ERP manually. So that would be an example of sending a purchase order. And also, if you receive purchase orders from your customers, it's a similar process in that it's you receive the purchase order, you would have to manually type it in, but with EDI, it goes in automated or semi-automated, so that you can have it into your ERP, and then you send the invoices out, you send the advanced ship notice out, and also the invoice. And one example to bring this home is something that probably all of us do, I would imagine, is we do this almost every day, at least my family does, is we go to Amazon, we find items we want, we purchase them, that's the purchase order. We implicitly see, oh, the items I ordered are there and in stock, and I'm going to receive this item. That's a purchase order acknowledgement. I know how much I'm going to pay. I get an email, I have a receipt I can look up, and then I know that it's going to be at my house at a certain day. That's the advanced ship notice. And so we help automate that with large business systems like ERP, so that you get a instant experience, in contrast to a painstaking manual order entry. So that's how I would put it together.
Thanks, Cameron.
Sure.
There are of course lots of other types of documents or business exchange of information between businesses. You know, there's ACH, there's inventory management, lots of other there are literally hundreds. So we're not going to cover them all today, I promise. I do want to just briefly talk about the difference between two different kinds of acknowledgments that get thrown around a lot in the EDI world, and that is the difference between a functional acknowledgement and a PO acknowledgement. And I'll talk about just for a moment. So that functional acknowledgement is, in the industry, is called a 997, and that is just a read receipt. It's more or less. It basically just is the system saying, "Hey, I sent this over to you," and the system saying, "Okay," just that little "okay" back. A PO acknowledgement is much more detailed, where the vendor, either you as the distributor or your vendors, coming back to you saying, yes, we're acknowledging everything you've ordered, we're acknowledging as a yes. Sometimes it includes estimated ship dates, sometimes it's an acknowledgement with some exceptions. So it has a lot more detailed information. That 997 is just confirmation that it was sent or received. And then that 855 is the acknowledgement with additional detail. Well, now we've covered some basics, and appreciate the folks who've, been around EDI for a while saying, I knew all of this. Let's talk about some of the challenges that go into an EDI ERP integration. So let's first talk about adoption and some of those adoption pains that we have seen over and over again. And Darren, I'd like to bring you in and talk about some of those that we've seen both on the EDI and ERP where they touch together.
Sure. Yeah. And actually both you and Cameron have kind of touched on the first one, which is around the acknowledgements, right? Yeah. That's one of a couple that I've got here is pretty common areas. So, however you're handling the exceptions, around quantity and price, it's, via email, via phone call, back and forth with the vendor or your customer with you, and let's kind of maybe focus with your supplier in this case, but, getting that acknowledgement back from them, those exceptions are, now automatically captured in CSD within the electronic transaction control center. And, people that are responsible for managing those exceptions kind of wonder, okay, well, how does that change my job just handling those exceptions, but then also my interaction with the vendors, right? So they may be used to getting that instantaneous feedback via phone call, and now that's different. That transaction, that PO was sent electronically. They're getting the electronic acknowledgement back with those differences. Do I have to pick up the phone to, ask questions? How, what does that all look like? And then kind of the second pretty common areas around getting invoices back from your vendors too. Maybe, this is kind of one that has come up a couple of times in the work that I've done is, maybe I get invoices currently from my vendor via email, but I hang on to those emails and I don't put that invoice into the ERP until I've received all of the product. Well, with EDI, I may be getting the invoice before I've received any of the product, right? So when I have that happen, or if I get the invoice and I've got some of the product but not all of it, what does that do for me as the person having to deal with those invoices and ultimately getting the vendor paid? So, just kind of, bring adoption, making sure that people understand, the purpose of EDI, which Cameron explained, reducing manual entry. But, they see it as this magical black box, and, it instills some fear at times. And so being able to understand why it's being done, and then identifying and explaining how their processes change and how they can, adopt and adapt to the different way of the data just getting brought into the ERP.
Yeah, absolutely.
Maybe I can jump in for a second to piggyback on something that Darren mentioned. The invoice, inbound invoices is a perfect example. Everyone's used to handling that piece of paper. I've got to do my manual matching. Well, with EDI, it's all done right in the system and it's done for you. So like Darren said, you may receive that invoice ahead of time. It's entered in the system. As soon as it's received, it matches up with that PO that's in your vendor invoice center, and all you have to do is process that invoice then. So you may have some adoption pains in the beginning, but as soon as people begin to see how easy it makes their job, and they can really just concentrate on exceptions then, they tend to move past that early adoption pain and see the value in it.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk about Clark. You a little bit mentioned it, but disruptions. There is certainly an adoption adoption can be disruptive if you've only ever done it manually. But there's also disruptions that come with ERP upgrades. Migration to CSD would be certainly one that we've had a number of conversations around. And so can you talk a little bit about, I guess you or Darren maybe, Darren, if you want to talk about what that disruption looks like? And
yeah, and I had a more granular example, really, and it was, around those purchase orders to the vendor, right? I mean, and it's a simple thing, but when you go to print that purchase order, there's a change. Once that vendor goes live on EDI, you've got to make sure that you've got the where appropriate option selected for that PO to actually get transmitted via EDI. If you don't, that PO doesn't get sent to the vendor, and ultimately it's going to cause a delay in getting your product. So I took a little bit more granular than I think maybe you introduced there,
great.
but
no, I mean, I think that gives a tangible example of that.
What I found in some of the upgrades that we've done is that disruption is really minimal. You go live over a weekend, and since you're working with UniLink already, I assume, they can actually hold those documents that would be inbound, and you would hold off on processing any outbound, so that when you're live on that system, it really eliminates that disruption and delay. It's you go live, we turn the data flows on, and everything starts flowing again. So in an upgrade or switching from one system to another, the disruption is really maybe a little bit over a weekend when you're having that initial go live, but then it picks right back up where you left off.
Yeah, I agree, Clark. And the thing that comes to my mind is the way to avoid those disruptions is to have conversations early and often. We see a lot of folks who have been in SXE for a long time. Let's call it a long time. And they have made extensive modifications on that. And so early conversations on, well, how does that translate into CSD? And having those conversations with you all early and often helps eliminate those types of disruptions of, oh, that's right, we forgot we had this one mod that inserted this unique data piece into our PO acknowledgments or really our advanced ship notice, and we forgot all about it. Having a deep dive into all of that in advance of a migration or major modification is helpful. And the other thing that sort of comes to my mind is, let's say you're already on CSD, but you're adding in a new module. You haven't, you went live on CSD, but you really were sort of waiting on shipping label software, and you said, we'll get to that and as a phase 2 project for whatever reason. Those can intersect with EDI. Now UniLink doesn't produce shipping labels for you, but the data that's on there, depending on what you're shipping, if you're shipping just, boxes or crates or pallets or, and what's in each box or what's in each unit, does have a implication onto EDI. And so having those types of conversations as you're thinking about making ERP modifications, you may need to ask, hey, will this affect EDI? Anyways, let's keep going. Project management. We've already sort of started talking about that and how those conversations and getting all the people involved are important. But Clark, do you have an example or two you want to talk about?
Yeah, one thing I like to stress when we're talking about an EDI implementation project is it's really important to consider your timeline and when you want to start that EDI portion of your project. You need to take into account who are your trading partners, what's your relationship with them, how effective are they at getting back with you on testing results, at producing samples? Can they work in a timely manner? Because that really builds into your timeline. You also have to consider about how well are you equipped to handle this implementation. It takes time. You've got to have the people in place. You've got to have the time devoted to working with your trading partners, to managing the tests, making adjustments as you see that additional data needs to be added to a document. You just can't underestimate that time that it takes to do that. And I can tell you that working with UniLink, they work really well with managing the project. They help you understand what are the complications we're going to run into. They usually start off with they've got a leg up because they understand the documents that we're going to be dealing with. They understand what the 850 looks like, what the 855 data is going to be passing to you, how to process that invoice into a supplier invoice BOD. So UniLink does a really good job with helping us and helping you manage that EDI implementation project.
Yeah. And, sort of talking about project management, sometimes one of the important pieces, particularly if you're bringing on new partners or if you're new to EDI, you want to make sure you're talking to, either the buyers or your, customer sales or customer success, because they're the ones who know, oh, when Jimmy calls me, I know that I have to ship it to this specific warehouse. Well, if that's only in your head or in your, in that one person's head and it's written down nowhere, when we get an order in from Jimmy's company, we don't know we're supposed to always put it at this warehouse. And so having conversations, especially if you sit on the IT side of your business, making sure to bring in all of those players who are not doing the technical setup, but the actual use of the system itself. those are certainly important conversations to have. And Clark, you're right. We do have project plans in place to have those conversations and talk through testing scenarios with trading partners, and to make sure, hey, does this, are there any other pieces that we're not thinking about that only someone in the buying group knows. Let's move on to the EDI processing or processes and mapping. Darren, I'm going to start with you and then go around.
Yeah, I mean, the three things that are listed here, right? Very key things that can almost always are a challenge. The shipping locations, right? Just taking the purchase order from your customer, they're not necessarily sending your CSD customer number or ship to code. They are probably sending identifiers that are meaningful to them. But somehow CSD has to know who that is. Well, how does that happen? And then also, what happens if they send in a purchase order for a location that doesn't exist in CSD? Units of measure, again, not necessarily the same between trading partners. If it's an each to me, it may be a box to my trading partner. Even the codes themselves, maybe we both understand sheet, but my code is SH and they use SHT. How does that translation happen and where? And then special pricing, always a challenge if you're using it. What does the transaction look like when you're, ordering quantity is one unit and your pricing is at a different unit? How does the trading partner handle that? Is it so much of a challenge that you ultimately just say, you know what, we're just going to implement a conversion process and keep the units the same for pricing and quantity? All three of these fantastic points for making sure you plan out your testing scenarios and that you actually go through and do that thorough testing.
Oh, you're muted, Sarah.
Sarah.
Sure was. I took a sip of water. I didn't want y'all to hear that that noise. Cameron, I know you and I were talking about this not long ago, and you were telling me about a specific example you were thinking of. Would you mind sharing that?
Yeah. So on our side, we do a lot to help with these situations. And one example I can think of recently was we had a company, and the trading partner had buyers and temp teams putting in address information, do business as, or putting in different symbols, and even one time putting in emojis into the ship to addresses. And we came up with a solution to actually validate the address using an API to go and check and say, is this a valid address or not? And this saved them a lot of headache beforehand, because we help normalize the address, and then we also have a process to help them deal with the addresses that come back as invalid.
Yeah, thanks. Let's talk about one more challenge that we see, which is third-party add-ons. Clark, do you mind talk a little bit more about that?
Sure. Sarah kind of alluded to this a little bit earlier, but there's often special requirements that trading partners have that will affect EDI documents, right? You've got data that's maybe not native to CSD, but it needs to be included on that outbound advanced ship notice, or it needs to be included on the invoice, or it needs to be included on a acknowledgement. It may be something that's coming from a shipping solution, something that is not necessarily always mapped into CSD, like bill of lading numbers or the UCC or SSCC numbers, carrier routes. Those are a few examples that I've run into personally. It's not always easy to store that data in CSD, but it may take a small modification in Ion Desk where we're creating a data flow that writes some data or that reads some data from some other file, and then remaps it into the BOD before we send it on to UniLink. We've also had the occasion where there's something on the inbound that we have no place to put that, and UniLink has found a way to save that data and then match it back up and write it on the outbound data. So there's always all kinds of interesting customizations or slight modifications that we come across when we're dealing with third parties. And it could be a shipping solution. It could be a warehouse management package. It could be almost any type of third party application that's involved.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about some of the best practices. Let's move on from some of the challenges and start to move into those best practices. And Darren, working with your ERP consultant or working with central data is one of the best things a customer can do. So can you talk a little about how y'all help with that EDI, ERP and integration?
Sure. Just kind of things, what are the necessary changes that have to happen within the ERP, right? On the vendor records, the customer records, whatnot. But then beyond that, how does the transaction actually make its way in or out of CSD? We can most definitely help you with, when we're talking about CSD, the data flows and connection points within Infor OS. What if I'm already doing EDI, but I have a new document that I want to trade? If it's the first time trading that particular document type, there's most likely changes within your data flow that need to happen. So all different things that we can help with and advise on. So definitely working with your consultant is a huge advantage.
Yeah, I certainly agree. I mean, we've some of our best EDI implementations involve involve a partner because y'all can make some of those Cloud Suite adjustments or give advice on best practices that you have seen within the ERP UniLink. We know EDI and we know EDI very well, but we are not that ERP expert, and that's where we do rely on our partners like y'all. The next one is choosing an EDI partner. Now, obviously, I'm going to be I am not the salesperson, but I certainly think UniLink provides that support. But when you're looking for a partner, there's a lot of things you should be keeping an eye out for. Clark, I'm going to ask you to talk a little bit about that, and then I'm going to jump back in.
Sure. So some of the things in finding the right EDI partner. I can't stress enough how important it is that you pick a partner that understands CSD. If we're working with CSD, UniLink is really good about that. We've spent a lot of time going through the various documents and identifying what data is saved where, and that helps streamline that implementation process for you. Something that could take 6 months, maybe we can reduce that down to 3 months just because we've spent that time working with UniLink and building out those documents and helping each other understand how that flow is going to process. And one thing with finding the right partner, they really need to work as a project manager for you in the implementation. They really need to understand what your schedule is and help you meet that. They need to be able to monitor progress, not only their own in creating the maps, but also in your ability to fulfill the testing requirements. Some trading partners have a very long and arduous process that they have you go through when you're setting up a new EDI document. And you need a partner, you need someone like UniLink that actually understands that and can help walk you through that process and make sure that you're keeping on track. We have regular status meetings with UniLink, often throughout the life of a project, and they usually accelerate as we get closer to go live, just to make sure that everything's working properly. It's just working with a partner that understands your ERP system even a little bit is huge, and that's really, you know, why we spent the time building out that relationship that we have with UniLink to understand how they create the documents, and they can understand what we can provide in that XML.
Yeah, I certainly agree, Clark. The thing that I really appreciate about what we've done with y'all is exactly what you're talking about. We've created a set of standards that say, hey, this is what we expect, but we also have that flexibility to say, oh, this client does it a little bit different, and it's here's how we can work together to get that, to achieve that goal. And we have that flexibility to, and I don't remember if it was you or Darren who said, oh, you know, UniLink has a way to store some of that data outside of, you know, if CSD can't support it, UniLink can do that. We take pride in being able to help our customers achieve their EDI goals, even when they have really fun or really interesting customizations. And the other thing I'd say is, when you're evaluating a EDI provider, you want to look for somebody, if you're not going to do it in-house, which you can do. It's challenging in some ways, and you have some resource questions on who's going to support it, who's going to do the mapping, who's going to be on call for those pieces. I do recommend an outside provider. But you could do it internally. We certainly have had clients who've done that before moving to us, or given us part of their business and done some of it in-house. But if you do choose an outside EDI provider, you want to look for somebody who's been doing CSD for a while, or even SXE, if that's still where you are, and has a proven roadmap for, here's how we take you live, here's what the project plan looks like. Do they make you fit into their standards, or do they allow you that flexibility to keep your business rules in place, or give suggestions on, well, what if you did this, or what could you try that? And then also that support. With UniLink, you have the ability to work directly with the developer who's actually doing the coding, someone like Cameron, and you know, or are you looking for other providers who you might have to go through some layers of support?
Just on that topic, Sarah, working directly with the developer is huge. When you can put the document up on the screen and say, okay, here's what I can provide, and here's where it's going to show up, and here's the format that it's going to be in, just it gets you, you know, light years ahead. Just being able to do that, work directly with the developer.
I know Cameron's done many live session.
Yes.
Let's keep talking about best practices. So, reasonable project timeline. Darren, do you want to talk about what that timeline looks like?
Yeah, I mean, I think you've got it nailed here. The 3 to 6 months ahead. Even the simplest of projects, right, can take much longer than maybe initially thought. You know, just kind of a simple example that I kind of put together, right, is just those outbound purchase orders. Say I'm only integrating with one vendor and it's just that one transaction. Well, there's a multitude of variations potentially in my purchase orders with that vendor. You know, if I have stock orders and I have direct or drop ships, if, you know, often they deliver to my location, but maybe occasionally I need to go and pick up. So all of those different variations have to be accounted for. And, you know, if it was just a simple stock PO, you know, you can probably knock that out pretty quick. By the time you start adding in all of these different scenarios, it, you know, magnifies that quite a bit.
Yeah, you are right. It certainly can. It's one of the reasons, you know, we were talking earlier about making sure you bring in, you know, if you wear that IT hat, making sure you're bringing in the buyers.
There was another thing that I was going to another thing I was going to
Yeah.
mention too, and I missed it, but you also have to keep in mind your trading partner's timeline may not be the same as yours. Their availability may not align with yours.
Yeah, that certainly can be true. Let's keep going and talk about smart mapping. Darren, do you want to start? And then Cameron, I might ask you to give another example as well.
Yeah.
Well,
yep.
Go ahead, Darren.
Sure. So just I'm working right now with the client, and I mean, it's kind of been talked about a bit already about some of the things that UniLink can do for us. And in this situation, got a supplier for the client that is expecting the NMFTA SCAC codes for identifying the carrier. Well, in CSD, that is not what is set up for the ship vias for the client, right? So how does that translation work? That the client doesn't want to change and their ship via listing over to SCAC codes. That's ingrained already within their business. So using the smart mapping and UniLink's resources, they're doing that translation in between and getting it converted over to the SCAC code before it goes on to the vendor.
Yeah. Cameron, what's another example of some interesting mapping that we've done?
Yeah, so some interesting mapping would be, well, my client started out with a certain testing portal that demanded a label code that their ERP couldn't generate. And we talked to the trading partner, and the trading partner said, "Oh, that's okay. Don't worry about it. We know how to handle your shipping." So what we were dealing with was a false negative of an error that wouldn't allow the advanced ship notices to go through to this particular, I guess you could say, portal. And so we came up with an algorithm that generates these codes and in the unique way that's needed and necessary. It wasn't a simple random number. It was an actual barcode standard we have to follow. So we help them with that. And some of the more banal and common smart mappings that we do. And remember, smart mapping is to enforce your business rules as if a human being was enforcing your business rules by manually looking over the document, adjusting dates, looking at rev levels, looking at units of measure. And so it's fairly often we'll get the cases to thousands per and have to adjust it so that the ERP can ingest that data. And we really want to make sure that we're automating the business rules for you and your trading partner, because they'll have theirs as well. So that's one that I would mention is the unique barcode that we had to come up with a unique solution for.
That's great. Thanks, Cameron.
Yeah, sure.
I think that's going to be the last best practice, which is around third-party software needs and how those get incorporated. Clark, do you want to speak a little bit? We've touched on it a little bit, but anything else you want to add here?
Yeah. Just that there's always potentially integration. So it's important to bring this information up early in the implementation. Understand what those third parties are, what their needs are. It could be some communication with an e-commerce site. It could be a warehouse management system. It could be a shipping solution. And it's really just making sure that you have those integrations set up, or that you have a means in place to grab that data either inbound or outbound and pass that through in the documents. So it's really just talk about it early and often.
Yeah, absolutely. I do also want to mention we do have a Q&A and a chat feature within this meeting space. So if you have questions, you are welcome to throw those in. I realize we're getting some number of minutes in, and so if you have questions that have come up, please go ahead and start dropping those in. I do want to talk, as we wait for additional questions or any questions to come in, that around EDI adoption and what that roadmap looks like. And this is sort of pulling together what the process should be. And Cameron, I'll talk a little bit about it, but I'd also love for you to chime in here. You know, we first start with those trading partner. You know, we need to first identify scope, and that is gathering who we're going to do transactions with. Who are we going to talk to at that either vendor or customer? We commonly call that a trading partner. So who is it that we're going to talk to? What are we going to exchange? Is it just a purchase order and an invoice? Is it a whole host of different documents? And then putting those in a priority order so that you know who should go first. Is that the ones that you do the most business with? Because that's going to free up your folks to be able to go and do other things instead of entering in data all day. Is it the one that is it a trading partner that's been demanding EDI for a long time and you finally say, okay, I have the bandwidth, let's do it. But putting that in a priority order and communicating that. The next step would be, you know, talking with UniLink to say, okay, here's the information, here's what we're going to do, and UniLink can start contacting those trading partners on your behalf and saying, hello, we're here to work with, you know, we're this company's EDI provider. Here's what we're going to do. We get a connection set up. We gather specifications, and then we start with that mapping and testing. And Cameron, I'd love for you to talk about what that testing process looks like.
Yeah, sure. So as Sarah pointed out, our life cycle, we gather requirements, set up the connections, and then after we set up the connections, we test back and forth. And as I mentioned before, we're enforcing business rules on both sides, so that when the information goes into your ERP, it's just as if somebody manually entered it, and they're checking for all the things they have without wasting all the time. On your trading partner side, it's the same thing. They give us specifications and let us know how their business rules should be enforced. And it could be anything of units of measure, rev levels, dates, backdating, checking ship to codes, enforcing ship to codes, enforcing addresses, as I mentioned earlier, all the things that you would want someone to review your business documents to check for, we can do. And so that is the purpose of testing, is making sure we've enforced those business rules on both sides with our smart mapping, and we test until both sides agree that the information's being sent to and received correctly, and that the process is automated, semi-automated, and that the manual entry is no longer necessary, and that the solution is working well.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And then that last step is once everyone agrees, yep, this looks good, scheduling that go live. Sometimes that lines up with a ERP upgrade, and especially if you're already doing EDI. But sometimes if you're new to EDI or you're adding a new trading partner, that's just an agreed upon date that works for both parties. And then it goes live, and we start monitoring that document flow, and you know, UniLink's on call for any support that might come up or any questions. Let's also talk about, so this is a diagram of sort of how it all works together. And Cameron, I'd love for you to speak to this.
Sure. So on the left-hand side, you see this would be your ERP, and you're there in the middle. We're just to the right of the middle. So there's our data center connected to your ERP, and this is a one-to-many connection. So what I mean by that is we're connected to your ERP, and then we also connect to any of your customers, your suppliers, your buyer groups, and we can send data to them and from them in any format. Some of the most popular ones are XML, ANSI X12, EDIFACT, PDF, etc. So you might have a trading partner that wants an email. You might have another trading partner that wants XML. You might have another trading partner that wants to do X12, so on and so forth. And we do all of those formats and set up the connections in between. So that's what this diagram is showing.
Thanks, Cameron.
Sure.
The other piece that you mentioned is that connection into CSD itself. We also have a connection into SXE, which is slightly different, but UniLink does have a pre-configured setup within ION. But there are pieces of this that you would go through training with central data that says how to use the ETCC, the Electronic Transaction Control Center.
Good job, Sarah.
I have to think about it as I do that, but I can get it mixed up. That what does it look like for the ION inbox or outbox, and all those pieces that training enablement central data can help you on. But those are core parts of how that comes in and out to UniLink and to your trading partners. I do also briefly want to mention PDFs are certainly an option. You shouldn't be limited by a customer or a vendor who doesn't have traditional EDI capabilities. UniLink has the ability to do PDF. We also have the ability to do spreadsheets or many other different types of data, which Karen did briefly mention. So I do want to let y'all know about that as we come towards the end. But before we go to questions, I do want to talk about our portal. It's something that we offer to our customers. And Cameron, would you talk about maybe two examples of how customers use it?
Sure. Often I'll have customers reach out to me, so they don't have to go to a customer service phone tree. They can pick up the phone, send me an email, and often it is, hey, I've sent an 810 over. I don't see it's acknowledged. And by 810, they mean invoice. Could you go in and see? Here it is on the portal. And I can go and look into the logs and see if there's any problem or if there's no problem at all, and I can update them. I would say the other use they have is about the data that's sent over. So I'll get questions about, hey, I have a 943 that's being sent over. It looks like it should be for production, but it's actually being sent over as a test. So very often I get questions about what's going on with the data and why is this data, it's what is with the information that I'm seeing? Can you explain it more? So it gives them visibility about what's going on with their projects. It's not this black box where, okay, I just trust UniLink's handling my EDI. They can go and check and see how their EDI implementations are doing. And they can ask me questions about the information that they're seeing or get information they may need to answer questions on their side.
Yeah, we also have the ability to, you can submit tickets through the portal. There's quite a number of different features there, but it is certainly a great view into your EDI transactions, and gives you a view of, are there any errors, or how much have we done through EDI? There's some great statistics in there as well. Well, let's see if we had any questions come in. Shane, I don't see any, but I may be using the...
No, I don't see any that came through either, Sarah. So if there's anyone out there that wants to drop a question in the chat or the Q&A, we can do that now while Sarah reviews the how to contact us slide.
Y'all are welcome to reach out to us. I mean, my email is there. I'd be happy to talk more about best practices and talk to you about how UniLink can help you, or if you have any concerns. I know some of y'all who joined are our customers, and so there's something that we can do to answer a question. Please do reach out to me. One of the common questions we do get sort of goes around how do the biggest challenge? What is that biggest concern for a company who hasn't done EDI in the past? How do they overcome that concern that EDI is, it's too much, it's not helpful? How do you overcome that question? Clark, I'm going to put you on the spot. How would you answer that concern?
Everyone is looking for ways today to reduce the time that it takes to process every document, right? EDI is the best way to achieve that right off the bat. You can receive the document from your customer or vendor, and it's instantaneously processed through IonDesk and entered into CSD for you. There's very little manual intervention that needs to take place. It's just the normal processes that you would have with any order or with any invoice. It's like the final posting, the final printing, things like that. But getting that into the system is instantaneous. And Cameron brought up something early on that about it being instantaneous, and it literally is. Your vendor or your customer sends that document to UniLink, and it's processed immediately. And as soon as it hits their FTP site, IonDesk is there waiting for it and grabs it and pulls it in. So it's really that time saving is just the huge benefit of going with EDI.
Yeah, I'd agree.
And along the same lines, accuracy. You're getting that document from your trading partner, and it's being processed right into the system. You don't have anybody manually rekeying anything. So another big benefit.
Yeah, I agree. Well, Shane, appreciate you hosting us, and I want to say thank you to Darren and Clark for spending this time to talk about those challenges and best practices. And hopefully that was helpful to the folks here.
Yeah, Sarah, thank you so much. Really enjoyed the back and forth, the panel discussion. We should definitely do it again. And for those of you that did join us today, do know that this was recorded and it will be pushed out to Central Data TV so you can share it with others on your team. But again, just a big thanks to Sarah and Cameron, really the whole team at UniLink. You guys have been a really long-term partner to us and to our customers, and we really appreciate that. And thank you, Darren and Clark, for your contributions today.
You're most welcome. Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Have a great day.
Yeah. Have a
Bye.
nice